So I just saw Spider-Man No Way Home. It was very stupid, but I had lots of fun. If you haven't seen the movie yet, don't watch my video. I'll be talking about spoiler things, so spoiler time, get out of here. So this film is currently the 8th highest rated movie of all time on IMDb. Not sure why things can enter the top 250 within like a day of their release, and even then I don't really see a solution to this. We'll just have to accept that these things will always sway towards newer, hyped-up, fan-centric films. Whatever. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie, and I would probably consider it to be my favorite out of the current Marvel films, so still not as good as the first two Raimi Spider-Man films in my opinion, but wow, was this ever a massive improvement upon the first two John Watts films. John Watts is an interesting director who made some pretty entertaining horror movies before jumping on to the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, and although a film like Clown is far from perfect, it definitely had charm and personality, and this is why the bland and lifeless cinematography of the first two films in this trilogy really stood out. All of the non-action scenes were basically just filmed like a Judd Apatow movie. Most of it was just shot reverse shot with the framing being way too close. It was like they did the bare minimum to just technically show the characters on screen. So I'm happy to say that there is a noticeable improvement in the cinematography in this film. There were shots within the dialogue scenes that were actually creative and interesting. Some of them required genuine effort and coordination. It's abundantly clear that John Watts put a lot of love and effort into this film, and I think that deserves some respect. With him now directing a film that features characters from the Raimi Spider-Man universe, it makes sense that he would draw inspiration from the films. Much of this film was nostalgia bait, and much of that nostalgia bait was pretty effective on me. I love that they reincorporated small bits of music from the original Raimi films. It was a nice touch, and it worked really well in the context of the film. Now, what separates this nostalgia bait from something like, I don't know, Space Jam 2, is that it manages to be a film that is more about fan service than it is about references. Merely reminding you of a scene in an earlier property can get annoying pretty quickly, and although that did happen in this film, and at times it was pretty annoying, the majority of this nostalgia bait was done by creating new scenarios with these older characters. They continued the storyline with interesting scenarios and gave satisfying conclusions to many of these characters. Now, I should mention that they created about 1 billion plot holes to accomplish this, but conceptually I would say the experience was worth it. It made about as much sense as the story in any other Marvel movie, but this time the narrative and experience were a lot more satisfying for me. Now, although they didn't solely resort to referencing the earlier films, there are a few cringe moments where they did exactly that. Most notably when Aunt May is dying and she says, "With great power comes great responsibility." Ugh, that was definitely not the time. Theoretically, this moment is supposed to be very serious and you're kind of ruining it. That entire scene was honestly so unintentionally funny. Jon Favreau pulls up out of fucking nowhere and parks right in front of the building so he can get front row seats to yell and cry at Peter. It was hilarious. There are other parts in the film, like when Peter mentions his back or Norman Osborn says, "You know, I'm something of a scientist myself." It's still cringe, but at least no one was dying in those scenes. Anyway, let's talk about some of the plot annoyances that bugged me. So the only reason the entire plot of this movie happened is because Doctor Strange was being interrupted by Peter while he was doing the spell, and the only reason he was interrupted by Peter while he was doing the spell is because he didn't have any sort of communication with him about what it would do beforehand. Like, just tell him that the spell would affect everybody. The conversation about making exceptions should have happened before you started doing this. How fucking busy or irresponsible are you that you wouldn't communicate any of this with him beforehand? Then at the end of the movie, they try to do a slightly different spell because they can't do the first one again because reasons. So instead of people not remembering it's Spider-Man is Peter Parker, then it's people don't remember who Peter Parker even is. And there's a bunch of beings that are piercing through from other dimensions about to destroy the entire planet, and Doctor Strange is like, "Yo, Spider-Man, are you sure you want to do this? You can change your mind. I don't know." Oh, so now you're making sure. So what if Peter says, "Yeah, you're right, maybe I don't want to do that," then you'll just let all these other beings come in and destroy the entire planet? What? It was very dumb. And then what? So everybody forgets Peter Parker, but Aunt May is still dead. So it only affected people's memories, but it didn't affect anything physical that would be the result of knowing Peter Parker. So by that logic, all anyone would have to do would be to just click on previous episodes of J. Jonah Jameson listens podcasts. They wouldn't have any memory of recording it, but I don't see why the recording wouldn't still be there. What about everyone's cell phone recordings from the beginning of the movie when they were following around Peter Parker like the paparazzi? It doesn't matter if people's memories are wiped, there's physical evidence of this. Whatever. When the other two Peters show up and they meet the Tom Holland Peter. Damn, there should have been 3 Tobys. They all just seem to have a more thorough understanding about what's going on than they realistically should. It was like there was a deleted scene or something where things would be properly explained to these characters that had never been in this universe before. There didn't seem to be much confusion. Everyone just kind of accepted it. That was weird. There's a part of the movie where Tom Holland Peter and all of the villains go up to Jon Favreau's apartment, but the lizard isn't there, and then MJ or somebody says, yeah, he wanted to stay in the van. So they just let him stay in the van unsupervised? Like, you're trying to wrangle these villains and maybe change them into good guys, and you haven't done that yet, and he's just, like, in the van, you know? He can get out of there and start destroying the city if he wants. Maybe they just didn't want to animate him anymore. It costs more money to do that. It's worth noting that this character was only ever shown in the dark also. It's easier to make computer animated characters look better that way. It is really funny that they didn't even seem to care about creating a good excuse for this. Yeah, he wanted to stay in the van. Oh, why was that? I don't know. There are points in the film where they poke fun at the absurdity of the previous Spider-Man films. They're like, oh wow, you just like fell into a vat of something and that made you a villain? That's dumb. I kind of wish this film shared that level of self-awareness with itself, because honestly, the plot is by far its biggest issue. At the end of the day, it was just functioning as an excuse to get these characters together and interact with each other, and that was really satisfying. Willem Dafoe did a fantastic job with his performance. Alfred Molina was also really great. Even though the plot doesn't make any sense, at least these characters were treated with the same respect that the fan base has for them. I'm honestly kind of jealous because I wish I could say the same thing about Mass Effect or Saw or Unbreakable. I'm kind of used to properties being handed over to people who clearly do not give any kind of shit about what fans actually want. Although, yeah, I guess M. Night also directed Glass, didn't he? My point is that I'm used to being disappointed by these kind of things. So the fact that they're actually able to be conscious about what people want to see is something that I respect. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. It was painfully stupid, but what are you gonna do? It was like a fan fiction, but good. The action was fun at parts. I liked it. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. It might change lower or higher, I'm not sure, but it's a 7 for now. That's how I feel about it. It was dumb. I liked it. Merry Crimbus. Bye-bye.
Did you like it?
Oh, God. Oh, that fucking sound effect. Is that Hideo Kojima?
Master.
Yes, it is! Oh, my God!